Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hey, this is Jen. You're listening to the Bible for Busy People podcast, and I am also a busy person, just in case you didn't know. One of the reasons I'm busy is I have 3 young kids, and one of them is a toddler. Now, taking care of a toddler is pretty much a full-time job in itself. But it is honestly so much fun to see the world through the eyes of a toddler. If you haven't spent time with one recently, I highly recommend it because to them, everything is new. Everything's an adventure and everything is just pure magic. We're talking bubbles, bouncing, puddles, airports and plane rides, even that if that is not a magical adventure for you as the grown-up, playing with friends. When someone roars and pretends to be a dragon, as a toddler, you really believe that they are a dragon. Spending time with a toddler just helps you see the world a little bit differently. Every single bit of joy is a response to grace from God. We have talked about grace and joy being an ebb and flow, a gift and response. Every gift is grace from God. It's unmerited favor. The Greek word for joy is chara, meaning joy, greatly, joyful, joyfully, joyously, rejoicing, or gladness. As we've talked about, grace is that which brings about joy. The verb kairo means to rejoice. Helps Word Study says, from the root kar, favorably disposed, leaning towards, and cognate with charis, grace. Properly, to delight in God's grace or rejoice. Literally, to experience God's grace, favor, be conscious, glad for His grace. And I find it interesting that it says leaning towards, where charis can mean a reaching out or an extension. So we lean towards God, God extends grace towards us. Grace and joy are intrinsically linked with the same root word and meaning. Chara also means to be well and thrive, which was often expressed as a wish for someone. Now, if everything good comes from God, which is a blessing, a favor to us, James 1:17 says this, and grace brings about joy, then joy is ongoing. It's not limited to our circumstances or our moods. We see such a great example of this when people are going through hard times, when they are in need or when they're going through health challenges, for example, and yet still have this otherworldly joy about them. We honor those people. We respect them because of the joy that they have. Grace and joy permeate who we are and our whole lives. I think of a quote from the female theologian and mystic Julian of Norwich, who said, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." This is the view we can take when grace is at the center of our lives, when we can see it, when we feel it, when we can point it out and be grateful for it. That's the secret. That's how people hold on to joy even when they're going through the most excruciating circumstances, when they're dealing with grief or tragedy or just challenges. Also, Jesus is our secret weapon to bring us life and joy. As we've talked about this week, Jesus brings grace. But also, Jesus notes that things are difficult, that things will not always be easy for us. And he points that out and is truthful with us about that. Matthew 5, verse 11 says, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." John 16, verse 20 says, "Very truly, I tell you, you will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. You will grieve, but your grief will turn to joy. A woman giving birth to a child has pain because her time has come. But when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that a child is born into the world. So with you. Now is your time of grief, but I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. In that day you will no longer ask me anything. Very truly, I tell you, my Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. Until now, you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask, and you will receive, and your joy will be complete." This is just before Jesus goes to the cross. And later in verse 33, he says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And one of the things we talked about this week was something that you would wish people then and even now is grace and peace, God's favor and also well-being in all the ways. And that's what Jesus promises us. He promises his presence with us, and he also promises that we will have joy and we will have peace. And then just to round it all out, Philippians 4:4 and 1 Thessalonians 5:16 tell us to rejoice always. That is God's will for us in Christ Jesus. This makes me think of the point that we started with and we talked about last week. Charis and chara are also connected to the Greek word for Thanksgiving, which is Eucharisteo. If you need a refresher, go back to last week. We talk all about that word and we go in depth with it. When grace and joy permeate our lives, all that there is for us to do is be thankful and thank God. We receive grace and then we express joy. How can this be in mind as you go into this week and into next week? Grace and joy that permeate everything and the thanksgiving that results. This is the life that God had in mind for us. This is what God intends for us. An ebbing and flowing grace and joy and the thanksgiving that comes from receiving both. Thanks for chatting with me this week. I had such a good time digging into these words, and we will talk more next week about a new topic.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.